so moving and powerful, and thanks for being here. You know, having a piece in the Oakland Museum in the Hello Feminist exhibit was like an honor of my life. It really was, and being able to kind of come around and have this conversation with Mac about grief in the world that we live in is, I'm just thrilled to be able to do it. I believe that it is essential that we find ways of being present with our emotions, especially the scary ones, the hurt, the fear, the grief, so that we can connect to our essential selves and to each other. But you don't need the astrology to know what time it is, right? We are here, and we are here because we see what's happening. We are living through terrifying times. And the astrology of these times explains it, but again, we don't want to use astrology to not pay attention to reality, right? So we'll just keep on staying in reality. When there are massive shifts in humanity, when there are massive shifts in culture, you can bet that there are massive shifts astrologically, right? And so in March, this month of 2025, there are massive shifts. And in 2025 itself, there are massive shifts. So I want to talk about those a bit. Right now, in March of 2025, we're in eclipse season. So eclipses, they bring up deep emotion. And whatever it is that came up for you on and around the eclipse on the 13th, it's going to play out over the next 6 months. So it's the themes, it's not the details, right? And it was probably intense because a lot of you gasped. But we are in eclipse season, which means things both become revealed and become more obscured because emotions come to the surface. Is feel your feelings. Be accountable to yourself and to others. And know that they are part of an evolutionary process of becoming more emotionally integrated in this life. And everything is so jacked up that most of us are feeling triggered very easily. Most of us are so in our emotions that, someone cuts you off in traffic and you act a fool. Or, something happens like with your bill for something and you take it personally, right? And that's just to say the surface level interactions we're having, the deeper connections we're having, the coalitions we're building with each other, or that we need to build with each other, require that we have emotional intelligence. And that requires accountability. And it requires care, not just for others, but for ourselves. And this is a period, March of 2025, that is a crash course in that. So whatever the details of your situation, don't overthink them. Whatever the feelings are, rise to meet them. And give other people grace, because they're going to get it wrong, just like you're going to get it wrong. Engaging with that stuff is hard, and it feels complicated, and it's worth it. And it's worth it. So, retrogrades, whatever. I'm not going to say too much about retrogrades. You know about retrogrades. It's a mess, right? It's a mess. That's where we are. Okay, fine. And it's just another opportunity. You all know. It's just another opportunity to turn back within and reflect. Things don't always need to be moving forward. That's what retrogrades teach us. Sometimes you need to go inward. You need to look back. And within that, I love that you love astrology, for as many of you that do. But learn from history, right? Learn from movements that have already occurred, that are occurring now. Learn from the past, because it is repeating itself. And this is what astrology teaches us, right? What were the patterns? And they show us when they repeat and what it all means. I mean, the thing about being alive is it's as a friend of mine who's a death dualist said, it is labor to come into this life, and it is labor to leave this life.
Come on.
It is not easy, and there is injustice, And we cannot manifest our way out of injustice. We cannot spiritual our way out of injustice. Thank you. Yes, yes. And understanding the astrological themes that are activated can be really empowering if we hold it correctly. So make sure when you're consuming astrology content, you're holding it correctly. There's a number of things happening this year. In July, Uranus moves into the zodiac sign of Gemini. Now, the last time Uranus was in Gemini was 1941 through 1948. I'm sorry, you're not going to like the other two things I'm about to tell you. You know. Okay, so it was World War II, but it was also the end of World War II. Huh? Nothing? Okay. So the time before that Uranus was in Gemini was 1858 through 1866. That was the Civil War. Okay, yes. Okay, here's the last one I'm going to give you. The time before that was 1774 through 1782, which was the American Revolutionary War. So expect nothing much to happen this summer. Thank you for laughing instead of crying. Although we should cry together too, right? Like that's what we're here to talk about, is that what Uranus in Gemini speaks to is so many things. I could talk about that for 10 hours, but let me just kind of try to be succinct to say, we have something to fight for. And we have something to be activated around. And if we are willing to face our fears, process our grief, band together, and accept that the people next to us are sometimes going to be annoying, sometimes going to have different politics, sometimes going to see things differently, whatever. You know, some people will wear pink hats and other people will say, why are you wearing a pink hat? And you know what? Just let it go. Just let it go. Because the coalitions we need to be building right now are coalitions that are inclusive of difference. It's Uranus in Gemini. It's all the things scattered around. Have you ever encountered Gemini? Right? And it's revolution. And within that requires that many different kinds of people serve many different roles. You don't have to be like the person that you're the most inspired by. You might support that person that you're inspired by and not be like them, but you know, have their back. We have a lot of roles to play. And I think, and that said, this summer in July, Uranus moves into Gemini. And things are going to get hot, and they're going to move quick. Engaged in movement building and activism, if you are doing spiritual activism, build towards July, because things are going to move quick. This month, at the end of this month, in March, Neptune moves into Aries. I don't know. I mean, you had a bad reaction to the last one. But Neptune moves into Aries, and yeah, that was last time 1862 to 1875. I mean, there were some things going on. You don't overthink it, but what you need to know is this. Two important things. One is we have to believe in what we're doing. Neptune moving into Aries is a time where we need to believe in what we're doing. And when we act out of anger and rage and grief, there's power in that. And anger and rage will burn you up faster than you can use it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we know there are people who are motivated by rage and hatred and vitriol. Mm-hmm. And we do not need to match them in their energies. No. We do not need to build coalitions like they build coalitions. But when you fight, make sure you're fighting for something and someone. It's finding the love inside of you and understanding that grief is just a shadow that is cast by the death of love. And so the deeper you love your community, this world, this planet, whatever it is, the deeper you love, the deeper your grief will be at the vulnerability of all these people in all this place. Neptune in Aries will teach us this very fucking quick. Oops, can I say it? I said it. I'm sorry, I did it. Okay. 2026, Neptune and Saturn meet in Aries, and you know what? The last time that happened in 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell. Okay, so there's some power in that, right? There's the kind of like clash of titans can occur when this happens. Now, the last time this happened in Aries was in 1703, which was less exciting news to report, but the thing to know is that the way we structure our response to grief and anxiety needs to evolve and quick. So instead of wasting your energy on why is this happening and why can't we have a better timeline, this is happening. This is our timeline. And so find a way to accept it, not consent, just accept, so that you can build coalition and work towards justice, work towards embodiment, wherever that is, whatever it is. And I want to say one last thing astrologically, and then Mac is going to come up and it's going to be good. Pluto is in Aquarius. If you mess with astrology, you've heard a lot about it. But something that I haven't talked about in public that is worth speaking to is that Pluto and it is always associated with people-led movements that are transformational and can facilitate progress. This is global. This is internally, this is really personal to you and your process and your love life and your childhood, and it's also collective to us all. And so there is so much to be freaked out by and hurt by and scared of. And there is so much that we can do when we work together. When we remember that we are the majority, and we remember that we have power, especially when we come together. In the words of Malkia Devich-Cyril, freedom is a practice, it is not a destination. So let's practice freedom together and get Mac on the stage. Friend, welcome. Really calm, like easy, chill stuff, yeah? It's a nothing moment. That's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah. So, I think, is this the moment we want people to talk to each other? You ready? Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so before we get into our conversation, I want to invite you to take a second, look around you, find somebody if you can behind you, next to you, in front of you. Maybe you don't know them, maybe you do. Take a moment, introduce yourself, and just give a little one sentence about how you're doing right now, how you're coping right now.
We're talking about
I'm Lanny. I'm Samara. Good to meet you, Samara.
Good to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am fasting from fear.
Fasting from fear? Wow. I'm eating candy from anxiety.
You're what?
Eating candy for anxiety.
I realized that fear was the thing that had overcome me earlier this year, and I'm doing Lent fast. And I thought, what the thing that's causing harm in my life is fear. And then I looked across the country and I realized it's plaguing everybody.
Yeah.
And that is the plague that we
Yep,
is
I would agree. There's a lot of level too.
Everybody needs to say it.
Definitely, because people aren't talking.
Let the other person share a little bit now. Eyes on the prize. Hold on. I know the one thing we did wrong was the day we waited too long. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
All right. So you all are amazing. I hope you all made new friends and exchanged phone numbers. But Mac, let's start with, from all that we've gone through in these last many years, you, the grief and all of the intense emotions of this time.
Thank you for asking such a deeply personal question. You know, I think as I start to answer the question, the first thing that I would want to do is acknowledge the million or so people we lost during COVID. Maybe some of your family members and friends, maybe many people you didn't know, but it changed our lives collectively. And for Black people and other folk that grew up in the 80s, can we acknowledge the millions of people we've lost from our communities, from the crack epidemic, from AIDS, from mass incarceration, people kidnapped and stolen right out of our communities. These are losses that we learn to live with and we adapt around, but they change us, right? People who have family members, grandparents, great-grandparents, and that they lost during the Holocaust and World War II, you can feel the loss still in the children of this moment. You still understand that loss today. It shaped your family. It shaped the way you think about history, the way you think about community, the way you think about government, and the almost 100,000 people, men, women, children, and non-binary folk lost unnecessarily in Palestine. It will change for generations how they think about freedom and government and movements and what is possible and what the world will or will not do in the face of atrocity. Consider that for a moment. This moment here is one thing, but what about the next generations? So the way I've been coping is by remembering. That's the first way that I've been coping, is by remembering that I am not the only person experiencing tremendous and profound loss. That there are millions of people all around this world, in Sudan and the Congo, all around the world, that are experiencing losses, some of which I cannot even fathom. Since 2016, I've lost more than 17 people, including my wife. And we lost our mother in 2005. And just last year, almost to this day, maybe a week or so from now, we lost our only uncle, my mother's brother. Making me, in fact, of that particular line, my mother, my auntie, and my uncle, me now the eldest in that family line. I'm 50. I'm not supposed to be the eldest of any family line. And so what's happened for me is this realization over time that loss is not something to be coped with. It's something to be radicalized by. It's something to learn from. It's not something to run away from, it's something to face and feel. That's not to say that I always do that. Because I am a human. I like to watch TV, I like to go to the movies, I like distractions of various kinds. But I also like meditation, and I also like conversation, and I also like singing, and I also like things that bring me into my body. And so that is another way that I've been coping and managing, is by facing myself in the mirror, by trying to embody what is real, paying attention to what is authentic, not run from it when I feel it. It's hard though, isn't it? It's hard. And the last thing I think I'll say about that is we're in a very strange time, you know? You know, astrology, let me tell you something, I'm an organizer, okay? I'm a skeptic. But what I heard you say was that we are in a period of profound change, right? And I heard you talk about astrology as a way of knowing, right? And a way of understanding. But then you said something about, but we are the ones who decide. If astrology tells us what time it is, we decide what to do with that time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so war was what we decided what to do with that time last time. What will we decide now? That's a decision, a human decision, right? And so, and it seems like we are already at war, politics by other means, right? We are already at war in a particular way. The question for us to answer is how many will die? That's a question we actually can answer. What will you do to prevent the mass deaths that are set to occur? And so for me, part of how I'm coping is by asking myself that question every day. What can I do to save somebody's life today? What can I do to save my own? What can I eat that's going to help me save my life? Because I sure be wanting some cookies. And yes, I am diabetic, can't help it. But I still be sneaking them, you know? And I'm going to tell all of y'all Girl Scouts kids that got y'all, I'm not feeling you right now. You're everywhere. You know, that's all I tell you. You know, but I'm gonna get my sweetness elsewhere. I'm gonna get my sweetness elsewhere. So yeah, make a decision. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to decide every day, well, whose life can I save today? What part of my life can I save today? What part of myself can I nourish and nurture? How can I build community like we're doing right now? That's how I cope, by building community. You know that. We come together on Sundays, virtually, don't we? And we sing and we meditate and all of that. So, yeah, how about you?
You know, I moved away from the Bay very recently and am back. And
Welcome back.
Thank you. And I'm grieving. I'm grieving having left. I'm grieving all that I fear may happen, all that has already happened. And for me, I've always been intimate with grief. I am a medium. I communicate with dead people. And my feeling about endings is that they are often misunderstood, because what often feels like a hard stop is not a hard stop. It's a hard shift. It's a turn. And what happens for us humans is we psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, we come at that hard, sharp turn and we stop. And it is okay. It's okay to stop. It's okay to be blocked by grief. It's okay to be scared and hide and fight with people stupidly and put your head in the sand. Like all the things we do as humans. It's okay, it's important that we give ourselves grace, and also to understand that the assignment is to feel it. Because the only way to it is through it. And I have tried, as all of us have, to build bridges and dig tunnels, and there's only one way, and it's through it. Otherwise, what happens is you put all this labor in, and you try and try and try, and you keep on getting to the same point and not progressing past that point. And it hurts just as much as trying to go through it. It's just not effective. And so I am feeling grief all the time. I have been for years with, I think, a lot of you. And for me, the thing that I keep on coming back to is, how can we choose to be here? How can we choose to come together? How can we choose to do things that are scary? And sometimes that scary thing is like, leave the house, right? Like, don't eat the cookie, whatever. Like, sometimes the scary thing, right? The scary thing is not always like that deep necessarily. And then sometimes it is choosing to take a stand when it would be easier to hide, you know? It's to recognize that we're living under a surveillance state. So when you go and you do something really cool and you're part of an activist movement, don't be a narc and take photos and then put them on the internet. You know what I mean? And or maybe you just put little emojis over everyone's face. It takes more time, that's all. You can still share it, but just share it with more responsibility, because we have to meet this moment. This moment is not 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is a whole new time. And I know this is a little off the topic of grief, but AI, we can't always believe what we see anymore. We can't believe what we hear anymore. And to me, it's just like we're all in the same delusion. And who do we trust? Like, I can't trust my eyes or my ears. Like, what? And so I am grieving also this world that I also am 50, and I'm like, the world used to be so much more simple, but it really did. Like, it was more simple like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so there's a lot in there. And again, for all the things we say and do, I'm just gonna always bring it back to like, how do you feel now? How can you show up to what you feel? How can you show up with integrity and care? That is always gonna be the move. I mean, there's lots of other moves, but that's like a foundational move.
Come on. I'm telling you the truth. I just want to pick up on something, though, that you said, because you talked about not being able to believe our eyes and ears. Who do you trust? I mean, this is the ultimate question, right now. Who can you trust? And, the oligarchy that is being, developed right now, that is building its power right now, right? The neo-Confederates that are coming forward, what they depend on is our inability to trust each other.
Yes.
Right? They want you to narc. They want you to be mad. They want, for all of my transgender brothers and sisters, who are right now the focal point of so much rage and hatred and discrimination, and that even amongst queer communities, even amongst people who identify as lesbian and gay, being anti-trans. Come on, right? Opposing people having rights. Those people who are within our queer community, even, right? Black folk, black men. I had a conversation in a barbershop with a brother who was getting his hair cut, and I was waiting on getting my hair cut. First off, I was like, y'all taking too long on this conversation. I'm trying to, get nice. So let's speed this up. I'm like, how can you are you a black MAGA? And he was. And he was. He was very pro-Trump. He was very happy about, he said that, he was glad Trump was going to have some boots on the ground to get the immigrants out, to get the undocumented people out. And I thought to myself, and he was mad at DEI. He hates DEI. And I was trying to mind my business because I really wanted my hair cut, So I was like, I don't want to get into it, but I just couldn't help it, I was like, are you serious, bro? As soon as it came out, I was like, I'm never gonna get my hair cut. But we had an exchange because the idea that a black man in America could side with the richest white man in America, that they could consider themselves on the same side, it's fascinating to me. Fascinating, like a science experiment. I want to do some testing. Like, what you mean? But what I understood is that the trust in government, the trust in leadership, the trust in social movements, the trust in organizing has been eroded. It has been eroded. When you can't trust the process of change that we have asserted is the way forward, then what you're gonna do? You're gonna turn to a highly individualized process of change. It's a very central battleground. Who can win the trust of the people? And what we should be very terrified by is that a man who has demonstrated and been proven to be a liar, a rapist, a thief, has some of the trust of the people. What? How? But there are answers to those questions. There are answers to the how, right?
Yeah, can I speak to
Please,
that?
come on.
Because the answer to the how from my astrology brain.
Come on, bring astrology.
Let's do it. Is Pluto. So this it's Pluto.
Tell us about Pluto.
Okay.
Tell us about Pluto.
Let me tell you something about it. Okay. So when this man, when the 47, walks around the world saying without a filter whatever the hell's on his mind, and he does it with power, and he does it without shame, he gives permission for other people who have shameful thoughts and shameful feelings to say, I shouldn't be ashamed of this. This is great. I might be bad in these ways, but wait a minute, maybe they're not bad. Maybe that's how I get rich. Maybe that's how I get powerful. And this is one of the problems that we see when we look at the historical patterns throughout societies, and we can again see them mirrored astrologically, is that power begets power. And when someone's feeling powerless, it's easy to want to stomp on the necks of someone who they think might get something from them instead of look at the systems, because it takes more complexity, it takes more nuance. And when we feel big feelings, we often just respond to those big feelings. But what I always say, and this is deeply Plutonian, is your strongest feelings are not reliably your wisest feelings. Okay. Your strongest feelings are not reliably your wisest feelings. And the 47 is living proof of that, right? But it's compelling. And a lot of people want permission to not work on themselves, to just want power, to want proximity to power, even if it means that they are miserable all the damn time. Because if you listen to them talk, they're often just constantly talking about what's wrong with other people, what's wrong with the world, instead of engaging with the complexities inside of themselves and in this world. And when we talk about Pluto, we're talking about grief, we are talking about anger, we are talking about resentments and pettiness, we are talking about transformation and healing. And we cannot have one without the other. When we heal, we engage our toxicity. But what so many people, I think, on the left try to do is we try to heal our toxicity without ever acknowledging that we're toxic.
Okay, so that is called liberalism.
Yes.
Give a name to
Yes.
it. You call Pluto liberalism.
Potatoes and potatoes.
Potatoes.
Yeah, it's potatoes and potatoes. Yeah. Okay. So all to say, when we are willing to feel our big feelings and not explain them away and not project them out and not shove them down a hole. I mean, again, there's a time and a place for all of those things in moderation. But if we decide that we are going to accept where we are and we are going to work towards accepting ourselves, even the parts of ourselves that we know we need to change. If we are less carceral with each other, and I'm going to repeat that one, we need to be less carceral with ourselves and each other. And not be so quick to jump on, you did that wrong, you got that wrong, because we all will get it wrong if we're trying. That's the thing, right? We will all get it wrong if we're trying. And part of winning over people who are seduced by the power tripping of the oppressive class is that they have permission. They're not criticized. And there's an element of that which, and then there's an element of that which is actually on us. Can we hold space for, this person has not gotten it yet, this person has not gotten it yet, and a conversation can be had, or they can evolve instead of dropping the hammer, which I think we do a lot. And again, that's Plutonian. All or nothing behavior, all or nothing thinking is Plutonian. And we are living through a very Plutonian era. Yeah.
We talked about trust a little bit, right? I think one of our mandates is rebuilding trust. And politically, the way I think about trust is solidarity, right? We have a job to do around rebuilding the broken bonds of solidarity one of the things that loss does, what it did in my life, what it has done is it disorganizes. Yeah, it's a disorganizing force. Whether it's a loss you wanted, like I would like to lose the current political system. Bye-bye. But if we did, it would disorganize us. You understand? There's no loss without some level of suffering. Some level of, there's no, loss is change. That's what it is. It's profound change. And so no matter what kind of loss it is, whether it's a loss you want or it's a loss you do not want, it disorganizes. The opportunity is that when something is disorganized, it has the opportunity to be organized. Communities are right now disorganized. Many communities across the planet are disorganized. Disorganized by, that's part of how fascism grows. It first seeks to create chaos so that it can build a ladder. How many people watch Game of Thrones? Y'all remember when the pimping Catholic priest? Y'all remember him, right? And he said chaos is a ladder. Y'all remember that? And I thought to myself, damn, Game of Thrones is getting deep. Game of Thrones out here organizing people. I don't know what's going on. But that's it. Chaos is a ladder. It's a ladder to power. And right now, that's what we're seeing right now. Loss disorganizes, but grief reorganizes. People talk about grief as if it is a burden. They talk about grief as if it is something to be avoided, run from, or as if it's only sorrow, as if it is an emotion. But grief is a process. And it actually isn't the disease, it's the healing. Grief is organizing. It's the collective way that we go about healing a nation, healing a society, healing a neighborhood, taking us from loss to action and meaning, right? That's the whole process. It's a structural process by which we do that. And so I think one of the things I want to say is that rebuilding trust, rebuilding solidarity is part of the grieving process. It's part of the grieving process. I am curious what astrology has to say about this period and the chaos of it.
A lot, actually. So some of the chaos is specific to how much change is happening so fast. Some of the chaos it's exactly what you're speaking to. It's this mandate, this celestial mandate, if you will, to reorganize. But it turns out that, here in the States, the authors of Project 2025 have been working a long time to create order so that we could reorganize in their vision. Right? The Holy War, and they want it for the rewards, which is, heaven. Heaven is not on earth. And so their organization is deeply, deeply spiritual. And it's also very just structured within society. And that is reflected astrologically in a lot of ways, which I won't get into the weeds on, but in a lot of ways. And to me, bless you, part of what that speaks to is between Pluto, Neptune, all these things, that we need spiritual core. It doesn't have to be astrology, New Age. It doesn't have to be a religion. We need nature. We need spirituality because what it does is it connects us to life cycles. The tree is a seed. The tree is a sapling. The tree grows. The tree has all these flowers, if you're lucky, or fruits, and then it drops them. And then it rots, and we have compost, and it richens the soil. And that is the cycle of life. And that is the cycle that astrology teaches and that nature teaches. And we are in a time where there are rotting fruits everywhere. That's where we are. And what we do with it is on us, right? I like to garden. And I know a lot of people, as soon as like a fruit falls or like a flower falls, they just are like, well, I have to clean this up. This is a mess. But that interrupts the cycle. It interrupts the cycle. And so much of what we're talking about in different ways, Matt, is that being willing and able to feel the grief, to lean into the grief, to learn, what is it that I love that is hurting me so much right now? How can I center what I love? How can I build with others to center what we love and protect it? The most succinct thing I can say is, by the end of this month, we will see on the geopolitical stage many nations have major shifts. We're already seeing it. We're already seeing it. Billions and billions and billions of dollars are going into defense budgets. And where's the money go from? Yeah. Right. It all comes from us. It all comes from us. And so the people with power are starting to organize their power more defensively for reasons. Some of them are, thank you, 47, right? But this is what's happening. And as things shift on this geopolitical stage, we have a collective, what is called in the New Age world, a morphic field of grief and terror. So the morphic field, if you don't know what I'm saying, is, no, of course not, yeah, okay, we're gonna do this real quick. You know how on Christmas, even if you're not Christian and you don't celebrate Christmas, you can feel it, like there's like this energy building up towards Christmas, you feel it, and it's nothing to do with you necessarily, but you feel it. That's a morphic field. It's collective energy that mounts on itself. And there's a global collective energy that we're feeling. We felt it during COVID in 2020. We felt this morphic field, this collective energy of first fear and coming together, and then rage and defensiveness and tearing people down, right? And now we're feeling it in a different way. There is a global fear that is mounting. And what will or won't happen come July, starting in July rather, is we will organize, we will act up. We will act up in all manner of ways, in all manner of communities, for each other, with each other, for each other, with each other. That will happen, or it won't. And if it doesn't, we're screwed, my friends.
Look. Let me just say this. I don't know about the amorphic field, right? But I do feel the energy.
Yeah,
I do feel the energy. Yeah. I do, and I understand it as a political mood. Yeah. You know, what I do feel, and what I'm afraid of, is you said we're gonna act up with each other. I'm afraid of the ways we act up against each other. Yes. I'm afraid of that, and I'm worried. I'm worried because what I learned is that the ways that we understand. Let me see. How can I say this differently? Okay, here's what I want to say is this. We're experiencing a collective trauma right now. Mm-hmm. We experienced a collective trauma in 2020. We experienced a collective trauma, between 2012 and 2016. The string of murders of Black and brown folk that we watched on, on video. Yeah, these are collective traumas that we're experiencing. What I hope we get to experience is collective grief. Yes. Because if you understand grief to be the healing of trauma, not the trauma itself. See, I really want to...
Can you repeat that? Because I feel like it needs to be repeated.
It needs to be repeated? Okay, we going to understand grief to be the healing of trauma and not the trauma itself.
Yes.
And I really want you to feel that because we misunderstand grief all the time. Grief and trauma are not the same thing. Trauma is a harm. Grief is a healing. Yeah. Grief is how we respond to trauma. Grief is the reorganizing of ourselves after we have been disorganized by trauma. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And so what I'm hopeful of is that in this period, we can experience collective grief, and that collective grief is a structural process, not an individual one. Not simply a collective one. I need you to join an organization. How many people in here are already a member of an organization? All right, next time I want it to be everybody. Because you think we can't do it by ourselves. That's the thing. There's nothing here that we can do by ourselves. And so because of that, I need us to join. I'm a member of the Working Families Party. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to be a member of what is it? Bay Resistance. I'm trying to join Bay Resistance. So how many people, anybody here a member of Bay Resistance? Come on, I need y'all to join Bay Resistance. Get on the text threads. whatever organization moves you, what they say, you find an institution and defend it, an institution that you love, but these community organizations are institutions too. It's a weird time, so I'm gonna close what I have to say with this. It's a weird time. The time that I'm a media activist. I spent most of my career opposing, media outlets, and now I'm out here defending them, okay? Because it's not a static thing. Power is not a static thing. I understand that we need a functional communication system. And so I'm gonna defend our right to communicate, even as I'm gonna engage with, the ways that communication system works. Yeah. Same thing for our government. I don't love this government, not this one, I hate this one, but I don't even love liberal democracy. There are so many flaws and problems with that. But what I do love is collective decision making. I do love collective engagement. I do love the democratic process. So this is a place where I'm going to engage, and I'm going to defend this thing even with its flaws, even with its challenges, because only in its defense can we actually build it. We have to engage in order to win something. We can't stand aside. So that's my message to you, is don't stand aside, stand up, stand with, stand for. And if you can't stand, just raise a fist. Come on, let me see. Let me see. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. Come on.
So
bring it home.
This is like so much that you said that I want to have a 2-hour conversation about.
We don't do that. We don't do that after this.
Okay, good. So this is what I want to say. I get a lot of questions from a lot of y'all, struggling to figure out how to engage. Like, what's my role in the revolution? Like, what should I do? And I want to say a couple really simple things. Plant where you grow. Plant where you grow, right? So being involved in small community actions can feel like, it's not fixing this big, crazy thing that's happening in the world. And I want to say, again, plant where you grow. Because the more you can engage, it builds on itself. And this brings me to something else that I see in the questions that I get from my podcast all the time, and that I get, through folks that I talk to, which is main character syndrome is trouble. I mean, you are the main character of your life, and that is a wonderful thing. Congratulations, it is beautiful, it's true. But sometimes the best way to support is to carry water, chop wood, to just do the things, just send the damn emails to the people. Sometimes that is the best thing to do. And if you are a busy person, you've got kids, you've got work, you've got life, finding things that you can sustain will build your confidence. And we're talking about how it feels on the inside, right? So start where you can. You don't have to start perfect, just start. And from that place, stay engaged with the feelings that come up, because if you are engaged, you will see how much work there is to do. You will feel the losses. And the losses and the problems are part of the path. It's not about do it for your grandkids, because a lot of us aren't going to have grandkids, right? It's about do it because it's right. And when you do things that are in alignment with your value system, life is easier to live, even if you're struggling. Do it because it's right, and then you start to participate in this morphic field of people who are willing to do things because they're right, not because they work, not because they get rewards, not because they get, accolades, but because it feels better than just being alone in your fear and in your sadness.
Come on, Jessica.
Come on, Matt.
We thought we'd close. I wrote a poem that I thought I would share with you all in closing. Is that cool?
Yes.
It's called There Will Be Living After All. There are decades that shatter everything that you are. Collapse it, stomach to back, till the 3 dimensions it once was now fit flat under the page. Maybe our children will read the story of us. Our children, those who survived the 21st century, will read that there were years littered with human longing, lost stretched across the memory exponential, Shadows over afternoon, shade from an unbearable, blinding and unbearably binding truth. There will be living after all. If you're like me, grief may mark you, raise you keloid and braided pockets and decades of loss, a quilt of time pulled tight over a buried past, stitched across those broken moments, a whole life spoken in the parlance of tears. If you're like me, grief might arm you, wield your open tumult in full public view until you are a border of absence, a juggernaut of lonely, perpetually estimated in a burning sorrow, the heart's affliction militarized, a towering wall of deep, cold rage. If you're like me, grief might crown you in sacred season, a solstice ordained by life's forfeiture, if you are willing to ascend to love's trembling heights like me. Be an unwitting student in a master class on meeting God with every verdant breath. Can you taste it? The sharp, sweet sap that bled you from each day, left you satisfied as work land, sagacious, steaming, and threaded through my every open door. Do you remember what it is to love and be loved completely? Grief to the mirror might say, I am love, if you're lucky like me. So if you're wondering what I've been up to, if you came to ask after me, I, grief, have been a crescent moon defended against a soft night. I, grief, have been a fourth world war training for freedom, for that day when hope and history align, when dead languages let me speak to you again. And on that day, they might call me crazy. They might redact my victories, tell me to get myself together. On that day, they will remind us of their charity, how they allowed some of us to keep breathing, how they gave some of us water. But on that day, I will not pick up parts of myself discarded by disease and distortion. I will leave my loving on the ground. I will plant it like an old seed in new earth. My memory will unpave the streets. My love will carry on the wind. My dead are not lost to me. And as they leave no lack in me, I will leave out nothing. Because after it's all said, and after it's all done, there will be living.